The Grinch has learned that the Christmas spirit involved love and charity and fellow feeling and so forth, which in its congealed form was the babe Messiah, the gift of love from God Almighty. Greetings, this is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers. I'm your host, and today we'll look at recent film, The Grinch. This film is based on the Dr. Seuss tale. It is directed by Ron Howard. Has some musical involvement by James Horner. The narrator in this film is Anthony Hopkins, and it stars Jim Carrey. There's a little girl named Miss Momsen who stars as Lucinda Who, a very prominent role here, and a cast of many. This is kids safe of a film as parents can find nowadays. And on that subject, I think I'll just take a moment to pause and praise the old censorship board that was sort of vigilant in the old days, trying to ensure Christian morality prevailed in the films. And because of this board, Hollywood was forced to use intelligence, employ people who could write scripts that might be a little bit more subtle and more of a story than you find nowadays. For this particular reason, I think that this era of the 30s and 40s particularly came to be viewed in retrospect as the golden age of film, where you have film classics and so forth. And much credit is given to directors of the time and so forth. But I believe that this Christian-oriented censor board looking to uphold morality was a very central cause for these excellent films. Now, with this board losing power, as it has for all intents and purposes, we have seen films drifting down toward the soft pornographic with poor stories, basically special effects films, petrol bursting into flames, chases, fights, gunshot shooting, and all that kind of thing. So I think we have seen a decline, and I think that for Hollywood to have a renaissance, so to speak, it should and would have to institute some sort of censorship board of the kind that they once had, which would force, once again, producers and directors to hire intelligent writers and to use subtlety and wit and so forth. Let's pause and go back to an earlier point. This film has remarkable sets, kind of suggestive of sort of a European alpine village mixed up with a gingerbread house. The main locale is Whoville, and an adjacent mountain, Mount Crumpet. It appears that all the citizens of Whoville bear the surname Who. We don't know if at some time in the past somebody may have been named what or when or where or how, but there is something that the little girl Lucinda Who's father, Lou, says that suggests maybe there was at one point a what. But anyway, we will get to that later. At any rate, the Whoville people are as striking a crew as I've seen since the Munchkins of The Wizard of Oz. They seem to all have a rather elfish look to them, kind of a pinched, radically turned up nose, and sort of odd hairdo in the way. But at any rate, they are preparing for what is Christmas. They have an annual pageant, which they call Whobilation. And it seems that their main concern, besides being merry for this annual event, with emphasis apparently on decorations and presents and what might be called veneer, that is the externals of Christmas. They have a kind of a fear of an individual called the Grinch, and they have a kind of a fear that the Grinch might appear and ruin things. Now, we have the film sort of opening up with some youthful Whovillers climbing up Mount Crumpet, sort of on a reconnaissance mission, as I take it. I did not really get exactly in at the top, but I assume that we probably saw the Grinch, played by Jim Carrey, in his cavernous abode in a cave on the top of Mount Crumpet. These young Whovillers are scampering up the kind of snowy summit, and as they get to the very top, they're noticed by the Grinch, who kind of scares them off with a dragon-like apparatus, reminiscent again of the Wizard of Oz. And to provide sound for this creature, the long-suffering, enduring pet dog, Fred, as I recall his name, is made to sort of bark into the device. It all comes out with quite a roar. Anyway, the frightened Whoers tumble on back down to Whoville, and there's quite a commotion. The mayor there is a little concerned, as so often in films such as Jaws and so forth, we have responsible officials who are immediately trying to cover up any potential problem which might mess up festivities or commercial events and so forth. So we have the mayor sort of intoning, there is not a Grinch problem here. There is not a Grinch problem. Everybody continue on as they have been in their merry way. Now, much of this opening film is kind of like an outside shot of Whoville, and there's a lot of milling around and so forth and confusion. I thought it was a little bit slow on the in the first third of this film, and might have used a little editing actually. But anyway, there is a kind of diverting set for people to look at, and the curious people and whatnot. Moreover, Lucinda Lou's mom, a housewife who is set on winning the House Decoration Award this year, and her main competition is her neighbor, the local town or village bombshell, Mary Lou Who, who seems to always win the decorations. We see her coming out. There's a certain kind of a musical note to suggest the femme fatale here. But at any rate, she's dressed up in a Santa Claus type outfit, dress, and kind of trades mild barbs and so forth of a competitive nature with her neighbor. We meet Lucinda, Lou, and her father. He's a mailman named Lou, and of course this time of year quite busy. We see him at his office, and he takes Lucinda Lou. She asks her father, what is the Grinch? And he says, well, the Grinch is a who? And she said, what? And he said, that's right, the Grinch is a what? And he doesn't like us very much. So it kind of leaves it at that, and he's sorting stuff and whatnot. Now we have had a cut to the Grinch, Jim Carrey, and we see that he is kind of in a mood. He wants to go a-vandaling. If the Northman win a Viking, the Grinch goes a-vandaling, and so he goes down about the same time Lucinda is in the post office with her dad to pull an array of dirty tricks. So one of his dirty tricks involves the post office. When Lou goes out of the room and takes his daughter, the Grinch comes in and starts filing sort of dirty trick type mail, you know, like a tax audit and bills and all kinds of death in the family, all kinds of things, you know, to make people bummed out a bit. So he then hears somebody coming back. So we then get a cut. It's Lucinda. She comes in. We see the Grinch is now pressed to the juncture of the wall and the ceiling. Suddenly he kind of falls down, and she is so taken aback and frightened by it, she herself falls back into a contraption, packaging device or something of this sort that might very well be injurious, even fatal to her life. She screams, and the Grinch comes and actually saves her. She then kind of make note of this event, that he did help her and so forth. He then kind of puts back on the mask of the bad boy, and he said, oh, you think I did it for that purpose? The only reason I saved you was to do this. Then he wraps the little girl up in red Christmas paper wrapping and leaves her bundled. Her dad comes back and hears her kind of muffled screams for help and unwraps her while the Grinch goes off to pull off some more dirty tricks, vandalisms, pranks, and so forth, mischief. Well, so the Grinch is back in town. He's a presence that all the Whovillers do not really want to admit to. The situation here, and I will say at this point, I think that I thought Jim Carrey invested the Grinch with remarkable animation, energy, personality, and so forth. He would also utilize changes in voices and so forth to add piquancy to the role, whether it be W.C. Fields or whatnot. So he is an energetic and interesting Grinch. Now, the little girl is kind of interested in the Grinch. She's heard nothing but bad things about the Grinch, but she thinks there's decency in the Grinch. After all, he did save her. So she ponders on this. We get kind of a cut. We see the little girl, pretty little girl, kind of growing up. She goes up to her room, and it must be said that on occasion these people break out into song. to sort of express their inner feelings. We have this now, and she kind of sings about her growing up and changing in her view toward Christmas and so forth, and kind of wonders about the meaning of Christmas and whatnot. And in her mind, I think that she thinks that whatever Christmas is, it should be inclusive. It should include the Grinch, that she sees the Grinch as having something good in him, and that could be kind of like a little spark in a fireplace. It could be nurtured. It might blaze up and be warm and recognizable to all. Anyway, she is kind of thinking along this way. We have a kind of a turn in here, kind of a parody. We see this parodies kind of cropping up now and then, and we get kind of a parody of the Citizen Kane shtick, where the little girl, Lucinda, is kind of trying to learn about the Grinch, the history of the Grinch, where he came from, who knows the Grinch. Well, it turns out the Grinch was someone from Who, a homeboy, so to speak. She investigates and finds out who were sort of the surrogate parents for the Grinch, and learned that the Grinch arrived in Whoville in the usual way. That is, came down from heaven in a bassinet via a parachute and landed at the door of a couple. The father notices the baby outside, calls to his wife, "We have a baby." Now, the Grinch from the outset is an unusual looking baby, green, hairy, mischievous. Early on, the surrogate parents find out that he has a taste for plates and things, china, things of this kind. Well, that's a little unusual too. From others, including Mary Lou, who her telling of the story of the school days and so forth, the audience and Lucinda, who began to get a grasp of what was the problem. He apparently was a fairly well-adjusted kid, as it were. Certainly different, but he was going to school with the rest and so forth. It did not appear that he had any adjustment problems particularly until this 8th year event. He was in a class with Mary Lou Who, and also the fellow who is the mayor in this story. The mayor is in his kid mode here. But the teacher is telling the kids that, they have a gift giving coming up for Christmas and so forth, so everybody bring a gift. The Grinch has a crush on Mary Lou, who also seems to find him attractive. A very muscular creature here, apparently. But at any rate, using that mischief, which seems to be innate in this Grinch, he seems to take the surrogate parents' jewelry and break it up and refashion it into a bejeweled angelic tree topping, as I made it. This was a gift that he was going to give Mary Lou to show his special affection. He had been laughed at by the mayor in his boyhood and chided, mocked. This little kid had said, "You'll never get anywhere with Mary Lou because you're green, you're only 8 years old, and you're hairy, you got a beard, so you can't go anywhere." Well, remembering this, the Grinch decided to shave, and so he went to it. Now, there's a cut to his being in class, we see him arrive with a paper bag over his head with his gift. And everybody is kind of astonished. The teacher says, well, take off the bag, and we see him trying to hide his appearance in a couple of different ways, and finally he exposes his face, and we see several nicks and so forth, which he has tried to cover up with little pieces of paper or something. Kind of a usual technique. Anyway, there is uproar, laughter, mocking, and so forth. As the teacher retells Lucinda Lou in the Citizen Kane type investigative period here, he was treated terribly by the kids, and was hurt very much, and so forth. Well, at this point, he just leaves. He goes and scampers up Mount Crumpet. And apparently, at this point in time, his heart stopped growing. It remained about the same size, apparently, and in a kind of a state of childlike tantrum. So he has not really grown up, even though we see him later full grown. He still has a small heart. Well, anyway, armed with all this data and so forth, Lucinda Lou has made a decision as to what she wants to do. At a milling of the locals, the mayor is sort of courting votes. They're going to have a position called cheermeister, and he is hopeful to have that position. The cheermeister sort of leads the jubilation, which is the big shindig that Whoville has for Christmas. And they are kind of looking for nominations. Lucinda Lou kind of pops up and says, I nominate the Grinch. Well, this causes a good deal of consternation. The people seem to be in a tizzy. The mayor tries to rule this out, bringing out the book of Whoville laws in regard to the situation. Well, Lucinda, who is kind of boned up also, and she says that it says in the law that no matter how ugly who may be, he must be welcomed with appropriate cheer and so forth, or something along this way. Well, the mayor tries to counter this with some sort of made-up law. The little girl demands to have the page that the law he's citing is on, and he claims he loses his place and so forth. Well, anyway, the bottom line is that the Grinch's nomination stands, and it's up to her to go up and give him the good news, as it were. So she does go up. Well, skipping ahead now, he finally comes around to the idea that he would do it. Then there's an elaborate routine of trying to find out what to wear, and he eventually puts on lederhosen. He goes down at the last minute, just before the mayor was to kind of default him and takes his claim and becomes the cheermeister. He's anxious for a check, if not a check, at least a prize of some sort. And he's kind of yelling about that. But before much could be done in that way, he is kind of put on a leader, as it were, kind of a cheermeister ride. And before you know it, he's being crammed full of all kinds of goodies and whatnot, you know, handmade, homemade type cookies and whatever. Well, he's still interested in a check or prize and makes that known. The mayor comes along and provides him with what he calls a prize. When the Grinch opens it up, he sees it's exactly the same kind of shaving apparatus which he had, as an 8-year-old, used to get those nicks in that great humiliation at school. Well, he sees red, as it were, with his yellow eyes. And we get a scene here that kind of reminds me a little bit of Carrie after her humiliation at the school. We have the Grinch really getting annoyed here and acting up. He mows a central path through the mayor's hair. The mayor has a kind of a sycophant aide who self-administers the same cut just to be like the mayor. Well, we see all kinds of mischief culminating in the Grinch setting the Christmas tree in the town square, as it were, on fire and burning it down. The Grinch is on Mount Crumpet now. He's on his porch ledge, as it were. He's looking down, he's fuming, he wants more revenge. He wants to know how he can hurt these people further, and he spies Santa Claus on a house roof, just having delivered gifts and so forth, the reindeers and whatnot. Bingo, he says, I will make myself up to be Santa Claus, and I will retrieve all those gifts that Santa Claus has put down. He's going to get his dog Fred to be the reindeer, and he's going to make him Rudolph, actually. He fashions a horn for his dog Fred and puts together a kind of a turbo-engined sled, large bag to gather in the toys. Now here we have a little satire, a parody of, I think, maybe Ron Howard's directorial style. We have Jim Carrey as the Grinch, kind of going through a casting bit with his dog Fred, talking about motivation. It's really silly. They do have all the gifts now from Whoville at the top of Mount Crumpet. And it looks like the Grinch's revenge is complete. He has stolen Christmas, at least from his point of view, has stolen Christmas because he has stolen what he views as Christmas, that is the gifts, the commercialism, the presents, the material aspect. So he's there, but he's joined by the little girl on the quest, Lucinda Lou, who talks to him about this and kind of explains to him that the presents, that's not what Christmas is about. It's not the material things and so forth. It's the spirit and this sort of thing that finally it's the giving, it's not the getting. And this kind of awakens in the Grinch fellow feelings. His heart begins to grow. Folks, that's it.